Hello, everybody. Well, we saved the best till last, so well done for staying. We are spending some time with Gary Carter this evening. Gary began his career as a young agent for Action Time, down the years through numerous roles at Planet 24, Celador, FremantleMedia, Endemol, Shine. He has overseen the development of more formats than just about anybody on the planet, from Survivor to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to Big Brother. He was appointed to his most recent role on the board of Helsinki-based agency KLOK in late 2015. At the end of this session, we'll present Gary with the Formats Gold Award, given for outstanding contribution to the formats business by C21 EMC FRAPA in association with MIPFormats. We are delighted to present this award to him as he is clearly one of the smartest people in the business. He won't say any words this evening, but later on at the Format Awards dinner, we've convinced him to talk to us a little bit about that experience down the years. So, to deliver the closing keynote, please give a fantastic welcome to Gary Carter.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. The last few years have taught me never to take an audience for granted, right? I've spent much of the last 8 months making things. You know, things. Things like flower arrangements. What, you don't make flower arrangements? You really should. Flower arranging uses an interesting set of part skills which apply to many creative processes. The perception of edges, the spaces between elements, the relationship between elements, of weight values like light and dark and rhythm, and the perception of the whole. And all of these combined with some technical knowledge and expertise to create something beautiful. So I've been making flower arrangements and dinner parties and playing Beethoven on the piano and drawing and making memories for my son, a play for the theater, and speeches like this one. And while doing this, I have been reading and thinking about creativity, its theories, its motivations, its dynamics, its purposes, and its rewards. Although I have not been making audiovisual images, I have thought a lot about making them and about the industry which makes them. I've thought about my peers and my colleagues in the industry, you, and about the circumstances in which we make audiovisual images, and in what way those circumstances hinder or help creative output, and about how the output of our creative labors are received. Or, in the terms of the formula developed by Ruth Noller to describe the factors that produce creative behavior, C equals FAKIE, I have considered the ways that creativity, C, is generated by the interaction between knowledge, K, imagination, I, and evaluation, E, with a crucial catalyst in the formula being attitude, A, which attitude, by the way, should be positive. Or, in terms commonly used in creative studies, I've thought about the relationship between the process, the person, the environment, and the product. Or, to use other terms from the field, I've been thinking about the relationship between creativity, the process of combining existing information to create the new, and the domain of audiovisual content, and the relationship between creativity, the domain, and the field of expert practitioners and specialist critics who judge the quality of our work. So I've been thinking about how we make audiovisual content, about audiovisual content itself, and about you. Apart from making, I've been thinking. A statement, as my late mother used to say, that is neither reassuring nor helpful. With that in mind, when it came time to prepare this speech, I thought I would ask you to think with me. One of my closest friends is a scientist. She likes to tell me that just because I am plausible, it doesn't mean that I'm right. I like to respond that in television, to be plausible is to be right. But in any event, you have been warned. I wrote to 50 of you, and I asked a set of open questions about creativity. Do you consider yourself a creative person, and how do you know? If you consider yourself creative, what motivates your creativity? How do you think about creativity? For example, is it an individual talent or a systemic relationship? Can it be learned or taught? To what extent would you say your company is creative? What enables creativity in your company and what hinders it? When you think about the qualities of creatively active people, how would you define them? And what are the biggest enablers and the biggest barriers to creativity in the industry? I have edited your responses to form a kind of manifesto of creativity by the field. I have called it knitting the world together, an elegant phrase taken from one of the responses. Obviously, I've decontextualized much of the writing and discarded some, but I have grouped the material according to theme and subject with an eye to coherence and flow. In some cases, I have sub-edited or refined the language use, because many of you were articulating your thoughts in your second, and in one case, fifth language. I've also used some of the knowledge and experience I gained during my time as an actor and director in shaping and refining the whole. You could say that I've combined existing information to create something new, and I have done so using a set of skills relating to the perception of edges, of the space between elements, of the relationship between elements, of the perception of values and the perception of the whole. And I've combined these using knowledge, imagination, and evaluation, all in the context of a positive mindset. Before I read it to you, I want to direct your attention to a few themes which will emerge. Implicit in your responses is the recognition that creativity is a broad field, a spectrum of activity which ranges from the personal or the incremental to the generative. In other words, creativity is understood as ranging from small-scale personal problem-solving to major cultural innovation. And there is a sense of modest perspective on our contribution. As one of you said, a truly creative person creates objects and concepts that change the world. I, however, work in television. At the same time, there is also an acknowledgement of the relationship between what we do creatively and the world, of a responsibility to society, to our audience, if you like. Notwithstanding this modesty, there is virtual unanimity of the view that creativity is in some way close to what it means to be human, that the drive to create is intensely personal, almost a higher calling. There are interesting observations about the relationship between creativity and self-actualization. My creativity is motivated by my need for beauty, for example. Although you view creativity as universal, you acknowledge that in itself the drive is not enough, and that it needs to be combined with skill, experience, and hard work in the area of activity for which you have a particular leaning. I consider myself, you said, to be a creative person, but I think I would struggle to be creative in a medical lab, because I don't know how the different chemicals react and what they can do, etc. In other words, you view creativity as a shared human drive, which is moderated by access to a domain for which you have a specific ability, an ability which we think of as a talent which is refined by experience and knowledge. People, you believe, are latently creative, but actively creative when they connect with the domain for which they have talent, and this is probably what we mean by passion. You are all clear that your individual creative expression in an area for which you have a talent is best exercised in a group situation rather than in an individual context. My idea of creativity, you said, is participative. One can have talent, of course, but a community of people where the talent is shared is the only way to make something really effective out of it. You have astute observations about that group, the necessity for a positive approach, as in the Noller equation, the need for small groups and the need for diversity within these groups. You also identify the importance of working with talented people who engage you, inspire you, and amuse you. You say, for example, it takes people with a love of life and energy to make me laugh and to make me want to dive back into the pool again. Interestingly, it became clear that all of you experience the autotelic nature of the creative process. In other words, to some degree, the creative experience in and of itself is a reward and a motivation, if not a compulsion. And you are motivated by reaching people and touching them. You are motivated by the responses of people whose skill you admire, by being associated with what you have made, and you are motivated by your company's success. But interestingly, you are not creatively motivated by personal financial gain. To paraphrase Walt Disney, you don't make television to make money. You make money in order to make television. And you like it when what you make touches people and becomes part of the culture. And you like it when it is identified with you. You are fairly divided about what makes a creative company. For some of you, it's any company which makes things. For others, a creative company is one which is concerned about creativity and which focuses on it in a structural, managerial sense. We are a creative company. This has been driven by resourcing the creative units, creating environments that feel fun and fresh, hiring teams with genuine creative leadership and a diverse approach to recruitment, as well as achieving long-term and short-term goals. Others of you are clear that corporations are never creative, and that attempts to systematize and control creativity are dangerous to the environment in which it naturally flourishes. Because creative environments stem from people, and you characterized the creative individual as restless and dissatisfied with the status quo, you identified this quality as part of what might lead to creative individuals having a difficult time inside big corporations. You are often satisfied by your creative labors, but dissatisfied by the circumstances in which you make them. Create particularly when it interferes rather than enables creativity. You are all pretty clear about what kills creativity. You are also clear about the way management fails creativity, and in particular about how leadership needs to grapple with the question of the quality of the creative output of a company, and to be measured by its contribution to the furtherance of that quality. It is a coherently argued position that creative work is an ambiguous, unpredictable, and therefore economically tricky process. When companies only measure themselves by numbers and don't balance this by discussing ideas and examples of what the company believes to be good, what the company values, when leaders don't open that specific discussion with examples, creativity is marginalized immediately. There can be no focus to the activity in these circumstances, since there is no articulated creative vision to inspire it. Furthermore, part of the KPIs of management, you believe, should be around the quality of generative thinking, the quality of expression that leadership inspires, and the quality of craftsmanship it holds high. You clearly feel this discussion is easier and more common in small companies than in large ones, and this is one of the reasons why creative environments are so difficult to operate at scale. Finally, some of your responses were very personal and very beautiful and very moving. Thank you, all of you. I hope I will be able to convey some of that intimacy of tone, and that you will take a moment to appreciate why we make, before you adopt the cynical position which is the best, or at least the commonest, protection adopted at a market like this one. And now I will shut up and let you speak, but before I do, let's see who you are. Knitting the World Together, a manifesto for the domain of television, crowdsourced from the field. 1. Restlessness. I believe in change. I believe in the blank page. I am not afraid of not having an idea. I believe in the power of what if and the consolation of not yet. I see possibilities. I'm not afraid of destruction. I need to make something every day. Creativity is something I do. It is not what I am. When I make something, the memories of my family, my garden, my company, I feel joy, energy, and excitement. It is an itch. When I go too long without making anything, there's a despair that sets in. Creating things is the best way for me to make meaning, to feel a sense of purpose, and to be connected to the world. I am at my most fulfilled when I generate I shape, I make. I am able to respond to the questions or needs surrounding me, maybe because I'm constantly curious, searching for new impressions and linking them to each other. I feel like a big sponge that sucks in everything around me. And at some point, I feel a certain coherence, a resonance with my inner feelings, the feeling of being more alive that comes with creation. Ultimately, all creative work is about creating yourself. To explore the mystery of you by mastering the fear of creating something new and sharing it with others so they are inspired enough to invest in you with money, time, and energy so that you can buy the tools and the time and the freedom to continue to explore the mystery of you. It's bloody exhausting. 2, I can bend it. I am motivated by ideas that have a meaning, by concepts that have an impact, by people who are passionate, and by the creative process itself, which is always in a state of flux. I think that creativity is the only way for an individual to actually change the world, a chance to contribute to things, to make things that shift people's behavior or change their way of thinking. I can bend it, and I want people to see it how I see it. I like a clear goal and a project that excites me. To be totally honest, I think that the most common motivator is the fact that we seek confirmation and credibility from our peers. I'm not particularly creative on my own. I'm definitely more creative with other people. Competition, I guess it's competition and some sort of striving to be number one, or the best in your field or your market, and that stems from the passion you feel for your work. And then there is the impact, the reception, things that resonate in your personal sphere, including good reviews. Perhaps ratings come into play as well, but first of all, you want to be loved, and you want to gain the respect of an alarmingly small clique of people. Pathetic. Then I'm motivated by the privilege of airspace on a television platform, of being involved in the creation of high-quality content which attracts an enthusiastic audience, content that resonates with people and says something interesting and surprising about the world that we live in. I love to see audiences entertained by my work. One of the most interesting things about this industry is that what you do can become part of the collective imagination, especially, of course, if you have success. This is a huge motivation for performing at your best. If your programs are good, they will survive the life of the single show. They become part of the conversation of a whole country, and eventually they will influence what people think, like, and dislike. They will create new views of the world, and eventually they will create new stories for a new society. They will become part of the cultural ecosystem, and being part of this process is amazing. Success is always motivating, success and acknowledgement, and sometimes it comes from public attention or credit from a principal or someone you respect. Money is only motivating if it's about your company's success. Personal income doesn't motivate my creativity. Creativity needs intrinsic motivation, not extrinsic reward. Going against the odds takes energy, a lot of energy, and there is only one way to obtain that kind of energy, from intrinsic motivation. Thus the question is, how do you create an environment that helps people to find and nurture their own passion and energy? But I do like to be fairly recognized for my contribution. Let me think about this some more. 3, neither Van Gogh nor Shakespeare. I believe everyone is creative. I believe everyone is differently creative. A truly creative person creates objects and concepts that change the world. I only work in television. I'm neither Van Gogh nor Shakespeare. Many people have to unlearn to be creative again. Most children have it, but our systems beat it out of us by the time we become adults. I think about it as a childlike, restless quality. Most of my 8-year-old son's friends dance, draw, make up songs. They won't be doing any of that by the time they're 28. There are different types of creativity which can probably be taught, but I think we all have one that we favor. I believe that everyone is creative, but in different fields, in different ways. I think you need skill to be considered creative in a certain field. I consider myself a creative person, but I think I would struggle to be creative in a laboratory, for example. I believe there is creativity in all of us waiting to be released. It has different forms and natures. It can be stimulated and it can be quenched. It's a muscle one must train and exercise. It can grow, you can shape it, you can lose it. It requires a kind of confidence to stand out, to not be perfect, to be against the odds. These are aspects of the self that one must nurture. Solution-oriented creativity can probably be learnt by cultivating a kind of horizontal thinking, creating links between otherwise unrelated topics, for example, and a certain open-mindedness, thinking in a connected way rather than in silos. I was not brought up to be creative. I was brought up to be open-minded. Blank page or urgent creativity, you either have it or you don't. It's a need. But what you then have to acquire is skill to get better at delivering the product of your creativity and doing it your way. Knowledge gives you the possibility of flexibility, and you need flexibility to create. I'm a firm believer that creativity is at its best when there is a 100% dedication to hard work. Discipline is the best single word to describe effective creativity. That is, when somebody actually achieves results. Great results, that is. These are the people you respect, that you want to work with, because they have high skills of craftsmanship, and for the fact that you know they worked hard to get it, and because they work hard constantly to keep it alive. It's almost impossible to create alone. I'm definitely more creative with other people. Sometimes just exchanging thoughts is enough. But in a creative setup with a defined goal and where ideas are allowed to bump into each other, I'm at my best. A lack of diversity in recruitment from across geographic, economic, and racial backgrounds results in creative constipation. You can have creative thoughts as an individual. You can analyze creatively from an individual perspective. But if you really want to make something, it's a group process. Smaller groups preferred. Over a period of time, clear rules for that group, build on each other's ideas, be positive. Realistic optimists have the best chance of success. Also, it's very important to have an empty head and a blank schedule. And discipline and dedication work wonders. Creativity is neither an act of God, nor talent, nor luck. It's fucking hard work. 4, environment and the ecology. I don't think that a company is either creative or uncreative. I think that the answer to what enables creativity in a company is really simple. One's boss and one's colleagues. Creativity isn't worth a thing if it doesn't go hand in hand with a vision. I've never worked in a creative company, and I've never visited a creative company, but I have worked in companies with a lot of creative people, and I have had leaders who have given me the freedom and the space I need in order to be creative. Creativity comes from the identification of great people, assembling them into great teams and providing them with the space and the structure and the money to develop ideas. The enabler of creativity in any company is the environment and the ecology that has been established by the leadership, providing an environment that enables people to collaborate, to develop, to produce, and monetize the products of their creative work. Companies, like most organizations, like to have rules. Creativity implies a challenge to rules. So creative people can have a hard time inside companies. We are a company that has a lot of generative potential. We want to avoid rules, but to cultivate principles that encourage this creative potential. Principles for how we compensate, for how we review, for how we cooperate, for how we measure success, how we learn, how we meet, how we give space and how we limit space, when we work, what work means to us, how we deal with clients, how we educate our clients to deal with us, and principles for how we translate these principles, our world, our culture, our vision, into the rules of bookkeeping and legislation, and not vice versa. And of course, We want principles for how we prevent the rise of managers. Corporate vibes are death. I do not think my company is creative. What should enable it to be that and what hinders it is the need of management to centralize, to systematize, and to guide creativity. A culture of control can be devastating to creative teamwork because it implies a lack of trust. 5, the F word. Fear. Fear of change. Fear of failure. Fear, fear, fear. Motherfuckers. People who are afraid of everything. Program directors who are afraid to make a decision. A boss who is too afraid to make a decision. A leader who is too afraid to make a decision. People who give you bullshit reasons for not doing something. No is part of the creative process, but hearing no for a bullshit reason is really a killer. Fear. The pursuit of stability and predictability. The desire for financial stability leads to the replacement of creative enablers and creative people with more predictable managers. The replacement of people who can handle the stress of unpredictable outcomes and have the ability to empower creative people. The replacement of creative people whose output makes it difficult to predict timing or the success or the profitability of ideas. And their replacement by people who manage to safer outcomes and tightly controlled error bars. Tightly controlled and well-managed error bars equals no big swings, equals no growth and eventual decline as the original big ideas come to the end of their cycle. Yawn. We must look to the big reinventors, unpredictable cyclically, with massive investments in the creative environment and in outstanding people, with constant improvements around them to enable their success and to remove barriers to their output and their efficiency, and constantly work to build open environments where failure is tolerated and the sole aim is never to fail in the same way twice. A supportive environment, one that fosters market knowledge balanced with experience and inexperience. Patience is so very, very important, and so is betting big and losing fast. And in my experience, there's a turning point in thinking about creativity, and it's when creativity becomes a business. Then, competition and success tend to become key drivers for the motivation of creativity. But at the same time, they become benchmarks and indicators. This is crucial because it makes your life simpler in a way. If the business does well, this means you're working properly creatively. At the same time, this is really dangerous. The risk of continuing to do what you're already doing is the greatest risk for a creative business. In the long term, it kills innovation. It's a kind of a paradox, but to boost the creativity of the business, one should think outside the business. Keep inventing new stuff and new processes, and this is one of the best parts of the job. It is not enough that leadership recognizes the company needs creative people. They all acknowledge that. They rely on them, and they even buy creativity. Nothing wrong with that, but it's bad when that's where it ends. We need leadership that has both that and a conscious teaching and encouraging of talented people to become even more creative, even more skilled. A good leader has to ask themselves what he or she can do to increase creativity in the people working in the company. It is not enough to just give those people space and time, or even love and understanding. Management has been conditioned into thinking that numbers are all that matter, and that therefore the world is either black or white, and anything in between is an outlier, or fluffy, or weak, or something that artists do. Creativity and ideas are crucial to delivering on commercial success, and CEOs and boards should be equally judged on that, on the quality of ideas and the quality of execution inside the company, and not just the numbers. 6, postscript. The fact is, it's an industry. and they are trying to sell the results of creativity as a product. We are asked to please an audience, and the easiest on the eye is that which we know. A baby stops crying when she sees the parent because she knows him best. I love to watch stuff I have seen or stuff I kind of know. But I'm happiest and I'm most alive when I discover. Thank you.
Gary, thank you for that. We are out of time.
I know you are.
So, so what I'd like to do is ask Laureen to come onto the stage, and if anyone from FRAPA and EMC are in the room to come up as well and present Gary with the Gold Award. Ladies and gentlemen, would you give a big round of applause to Gary Carter?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
You take the award?
Yes. Oh, thank you.
So this is first.
Right, got some pictures. Either side. Hang on.
On either side.
Hang on. Let me breathe in.